Welcome to Chisel Compass, where deep-rooted wisdom meets the crossroads of faith, entrepreneurship, and mindset. I'm the real Jason Duncan, and he's Dr. Justin Moseley, the Mindset Doctor. And we're here to help you refine your vision and navigate life's toughest challenges with purpose-driven strategies and real-world insights. Each episode, we're going to dive into faith-driven leadership, business growth, personal development, and the mindset shifts that drive lasting success. Now, whether you're building your business, enhancing your leadership skills, or pursuing personal growth, this podcast equips you with the tools and perspectives you need to lead with conviction and live with impact. This isn't just about where you're going, it's how you get there. So let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Chisel and Compass. Welcome back to another episode. We are your hosts, the real Jason Duncan,
Dr. Justin Moseley,
and this is Chisel and Compass. This is a podcast where we talk about the intersection of faith, business, and mindset. Today, we're gonna mix a little bit of business with some mindset talk. So we gave our business backstories in the previous episode. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about mindset, and what we want to focus on is this: what are you speaking into your life? And we're going to talk about the power of the tongue and shaping your reality and shaping your mindset, which then shapes your reality. So, Justin, as we kick this off, what are your first thoughts to set the context of this conversation up?
Yeah, I think even there's different ways to define mindset, but just looking at where is your mind set when it comes to business? Because some people, their mind is set on being a good technician. So that in and of itself is a mindset, and you start thinking a certain way and you start speaking a certain way. I am great at this thing. But to really grow your business, it's a different mindset to become the CEO, to become a manager of people. Like all the things you got to do to really grow and scale a business takes a whole new level of mindset and a new way to think, believe, and speak on who you become as the leader of your business.
Yeah, so some perspective on this comes from some statistics I've looked up. I don't even know how to say the person's last name who wrote this study, but it's in Perspectives on Psychological Science. It was published in 2011. The last name starts with an H. It's a long name. It's probably Greek. I don't understand it. But athletes who use positive self-talk improve performance by about 8 to 12% in strength and endurance tasks compared to those who don't. So what does that mean? Why would that happen? Justin, you want to weigh in on why you think that might be true?
Yes, because one, the mind can't tell the difference between something real and vividly imagined. So think about that. And when we think about stuff, we think in pictures, we think in images. So when we start to think about performance, there's lots of studies now in sports performance on visualization and speaking things into existence, and not in a woo-woo law of attraction way, but more of, as we talked about on other episodes, priming the reticular activating system in our brain to, one, start to believe that we are a better athlete, that we can catch the ball that needs to be caught, or hit the ball in the pressure situation. Lots of quarterbacks, Tom Brady was really big about visualization and going through his motions. So when he got onto the field of play, it came second nature because he'd already been there in his mind. And I look at this even in my own journey to speaking. People ask me, when did you become a speaker? I became a speaker in my mind long before I ever stepped on a stage, because of the way I thought and the way I started speaking myself, the positive affirmations over myself, that at the point where I was terrified of public speaking, I was affirming that I'm a strong, powerful, confident speaker, that when I speak, people listen, and when I lead, people follow. Because in my mind, I had a vision of being a speaker that influenced people. So when I would say those things, when I speak, people listen, and when I lead, people follow, I saw being able to speak to people and then influence them to make positive changes in their life. So for me, I am a product of what happens when you start to speak these things. You start to believe them. And the more you start to believe them, the more you start to act on it, and the more you start to become it.
Yeah, I think we've all been in situations, or most of us been in situations, where we were either the athlete or we were the support on the sidelines, where we say, you can do it, it's going to be all right, hit it, keep your head up, whatever And that's all positive reinforcement. And if the person hearing that also buys into it, they're going to perform better, because negative self-talk is linked to higher stress and poor performance. And so what we say has a lot to do with the reality. This also is related to health outcomes. This is very interesting. This is from Social Science and Medicine. This was published in 2017. It said, quote, patients who received optimistic framing from doctors reported 28% less pain and recovered faster compared to those who were given neutral or negative framing. Now, you're a doctor, so have you seen how this works in real life?
Absolutely. I was on a podcast earlier today, and it was a functional medicine doctor ran this podcast, and he sees a lot of cancer patients. And we talked about a study that showed the cancer patients who went through the exact same treatments, but the ones that got the diagnosis and they believe that this is just the death sentence, it's over for me, died quickly. And the ones that actually believe, like, nope, I got the diagnosis, it's real, but it's not the end. I have a bigger purpose. I can live to see my kids grow up. They actually went through the exact same treatments, but the ones who had the positive belief that they could heal, most of them lived past the 5-year and got the cancer-free prognosis, I guess, at that point, because of their belief. The belief was the only different factor. If they believed it was a death sentence and it was over, boom, they actually went downhill quickly.
Yeah, believing in recovery, often reinforced by language, can activate something called the placebo effect, and it can create real physiological change. And the placebo effect for me was the thing that sent me over the edge in understanding and believing in affirmations, believing in positive self-talk, and shunning negative self-talk. Because if you look at the placebo effect, it was, I think, Henry K. Beecher, who was an anesthesiologist, who published The Power of Placebo. I think this was in 1955, where he studied 15. They had 15 studies that found a 35% of patients improving just through placebo. And how is that possible? I mean, knees physically getting better that needed surgery just because they were told that they were better. They pretended to have surgery on them, but they didn't. And they were told, how is that possible? It's because what we believe and what we say has a lot of effect on our real life. And a placebo is not woo-woo. It is not. Now, people take it to an extreme, and just because you tell somebody they're good and they're going to be better doesn't mean they always will get better.
Right.
But it certainly has a positive effect. Now, positive self-talk, or the way we speak to ourselves and how we talk, not only helps performance, health outcomes, but it also has a lot to do with stress and resilience. And this is in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology. This was published in 2013, where it said people who reframed stress as helpful rather than harmful showed 23% lower cortisol levels and improved problem solving under pressure. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, you just reframe the crap you're going through to say, okay, this is for my good. This is going to be all right. I'm going to be okay. Same crap, where the other person look at it and go, this is terrible. This is the end of me. Yeah. I was just having a conversation earlier today with someone very close to me, and they're going through a really, really difficult time. And their mindset, because they messaged me about it, their mindset was, it's over. This is inevitable. It's going to be terrible. All of which is probably true. Like there's enough evidence for a reasonable adult who's not, hallucinating to go, yeah, that's probably where this is going. But I spoke to him in a way that said, look, you don't know that it's inevitable. You don't know that that's the outcome. You're not sure. And even through this short kind of conversation, his countenance changed. It's like, you're right. So the same crap, if you can reframe stress as helpful rather than harmful, you can lower your cortisol levels by as much as 23%. That's pretty dang cool.
And that's huge. And you reminded me. And I shared this in my TEDx talk. So plug in my TEDx talk here. Go watch it. If you've ever had a fear of public speaking, go watch YouTube, find my TEDx talk. But I talked about one thing that I would do. I would have to get up and speak, and I would go into fight or flight. And you guys have felt like that adrenaline rush when you have to speak. My hands would get sweaty. My voice would start shaking. My muscles would all tighten up. And I would have this feeling. And in my mind, I anchored in that feeling. You're freaked out. You're scared. Remember when you spoke in the past? it was terrible. You're going to do terrible again. So all these negative feedback loops were happening because I was feeling this feeling of stress. Now, what I did, I said, well, what other times do I feel this feeling? I was like, I feel this feeling when I get excited. So I looked up the common causes or the common symptoms of stress and the common symptoms of excitement, and they were exactly the same. You get the same feeling because your body gets that adrenaline rush when you're excited, and your palms can get sweaty, your voice can shake, your muscles can tighten up. So you could have the same feeling if you're in fear or if you're in excitement. So what I did is I did that reframe that Jason just talked about. I said, when I feel that feeling, I'm not going to let my mind tell me it's because I'm scared. Because when I just think that, I'm going to do a bad job. But if I feel that and I let myself say, I'm feeling this because I'm excited, because I get to go out and share information that can change someone's life today. And just that one mindset shift actually made me excited. And when I was feeling that, I was like, you know what? I actually am excited because I am going to go out there and make a difference. And just by reframing that, and Jason, you've heard me use this. I used it with your Exeter group. I was talking with them of nothing has meaning until you give it meaning. So that just because I felt the feeling of stress, I could give it meaning and say, I'm scared. I'm not a good speaker. That's why you're feeling this. Or I could give it the meaning, I'm feeling this because I'm so excited for this opportunity. And that one mindset shift has been a game changer for me.
Well, I wish kids in elementary and middle school, certainly high school and college, were taught this. But the earlier the better. Is like that whole phrase, nothing has meaning till you give it meaning. That is a life changer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many examples that you can look up online, watch YouTube videos, and read articles about what perception is, and we think one thing. But then in reality, if we just walked around and looked at it from the other side, we'd have a completely different thought. So we are the ones applying meaning to the situation. True story. We were walking into Chili's this past Sunday after church service to have lunch. We don't ever go to Chili's, but today they're like, hey, we're going to go to Chili's today. Well, there's two sets of double doors leading into Chili's. The outside set of double doors, we went to pull the right door, which is normal. Like I pulled right, and it wouldn't open. Like it was locked. So I opened the left door and walked in the left door. So my wife goes in, I go in after her, and a lady was coming out of the left door, which would have been her right, right. And she's pushing out. So she comes out. Well, because of what just happened to our other right door, my wife rightly assumed, well, that door probably is not working either. They probably got them both locked. And the lady's husband was probably 10 or 15 feet behind. He wasn't right behind her. Yeah. So Christy just darted in, that door in that gap. And that woman looked at me and she goes, there are two doors.
Oh, wow.
and I looked at her and I'm like, I like everything's calculating my brain really fast. Yeah. Did this lady just say this? And is she saying that because maybe like, was the door not broken? I couldn't comprehend what was going on. And then Christy heard it as she turned around, and I think her brain was kind of doing the same thing, like a beautiful mind, like all these things going on. What do we say here? And my wife just goes, have a great day. And I just looked at her and said, thank you for letting me know. And then I opened the right door and I walked through it. I was like, I don't know what just happened.
Yeah.
Well, I was able to, I'm not throwing my wife under the bus here, but it is a true story. I was able to like, okay, whatever, she's having a bad day. She's being a jerk. Just move on.
Yeah.
But my wife couldn't let it go. She's like, why that lady so rude? I said, I have no idea. But here's the thing. We gave that meaning. She might have meant it helpful. Like she might have said, to give her the benefit of the doubt, hey, like there are two doors. Like, hey, this other door does work. It's fine. Because she might have known the other door over there was broken. But we gave it full meaning, and then it ruined what otherwise would have been just a normal Sunday. I say ruined. It didn't really ruin our lunch, but it really had a cloud like put over us about what this lady did. But we give things meaning, and kids need to understand, look, you're the interpreter of your reality. Right. If you don't interpret it the way you want it, someone's going to interpret it for you, and you're going to end up living in their reality.
Yeah. And a few things came up with me for that, because I think a lot of people hold on to things like that too, or whether they're cut off in traffic and they get upset and get worked up. Like that doesn't do anything to serve you, like to get upset at someone else and let them ruin your day because of something they did. And I think this was a powerful example that you just showed, because from that other lady's perspective, she didn't know the door was locked. So she was probably thinking, you guys are crazy. Why are you going in the wrong door? So by you being able to step back and look at, well, other people are just, nobody walks around just trying to be wrong. Everybody has their own lens they're seeing through. So sometimes it's stepping back, like even though they may be wrong in this situation by telling you went through the wrong door, but by knowing hey, she just has her own perspective. That's where she's coming from. So she didn't know, hey, that other door was locked. We needed to go through this door. So sometimes that makes it easier for me to be like, well, they didn't have all the information. So that's just from their limited point of view, seemed right to them, even though they were wrong.
So Gallup produced a study in 2017, a workplace survey about leadership and workplace teamwork. And what they said is that teams with leaders who use positive, future-focused language were 31% more productive and reported higher job satisfaction. And so since this podcast is about faith, business, and mindset, and we're both business guys, I can tell you that as a leader in business, when I have worked for leaders who use positive future focus, I'm going to do a better job. Mm-hmm. I've also worked for jerks. I've worked for people that were the Eeyores, that everything was wrong, nothing's right. And I've worked for incompetent people too. But it's about the idea of what is being said from the top is usually what the bottom is going to live, their reality. Yeah. What have you seen in terms of how words in the workplace affect what goes on?
Yeah, because that being said, as the leader, we do take on a lot. And there is times where times are tough and there's challenges coming up. But if you take that position like the Eeyore, like, oh man, things are terrible, we've got to get the numbers up or we're going under, is sometimes the feeling the team gets, and then they freak out. And they come from this place of lack and scarcity versus a lot of times a leader, you just need to take that on yourself. That's kind of what we signed up for, to be the leader of this. But then the words that we need to actually put out are the inspiring and encouraging, not the ship is sinking, which is the kind of the perception sometimes people give. The ship is sinking versus, no, this is where we're at, but this is what we need to do. And then lift up, encourage, inspire people around to be like, no, we're excited. We can actually turn this thing around, versus everybody's scared for their jobs and maybe even on their lunch break trying to look for another job because they think they're on a sinking ship. So it does come from those words. I do want to go back to the placebo study because you made me think of something. It's been probably 20 years since I've seen this, but somebody showed me a video, and it was done by like CNN, 2020, one of the big boys of like doing like documentaries. But they actually took a knee surgeon and they showed his patients, and he did placebo surgeries on them. So he did this section of people that he actually did surgeries on, and then he took other people that he did a placebo surgery. He did a puncture, so they actually had to sew it back up. So the patient didn't know. They just thought I had a surgery. I see the stitches. I think I had a surgery. And then they followed up with them 5 years down the road. And the people that got a sham surgery, nothing was repaired. They believed they had the surgery, though, and they were going to be healed. And they were walking around perfectly as if they had the surgery. And it was so crazy. And at that time when I was shown it, somebody had downloaded it because 2020 CNN, whoever it was who actually put it out there, took it down. But now I think you can probably find it on YouTube. I think somebody put it back up there. But that's the power of the placebo. Like, those people thought, hey, this surgery is going to change everything for me. My knee's going to heal. And boom, he didn't do a surgery at all, but they believed it and their body healed up. That's the power of the words, because the words come from the belief. It all stems from belief. What are you believing? And what you're believing is coming out of your mouth and what you're saying.
Yeah, there's the whole idea of the placebo for me, as I said earlier, it is the thing that made me believe in the power of our words. The belief that we have, it leads to our realities. Yeah. And that is what I think makes this all true. Yeah. Is that we can do studies and look at it, but the reality is, look, if we were doing these placebo studies on people, and people who think something end up with the benefit of the people who actually take the drugs or have the surgery, that tells me that there's something else going on more than what we think. Absolutely. And what we say to ourselves and to others literally wires our brains. It shifts our hormones. It changes our actions. Words don't just describe reality, they shape it. Absolutely. And that's why I'm really happy that we're having this conversation today, Justin.
Yeah. And it's crazy because there's a lot of placebo studies when it comes to medications, because they want to test it against from mental health drugs to cholesterol to all kinds of stuff, and they'll give the placebo group a sugar pill. But they'll think this is going to lower my cholesterol, or this is going to balance out the chemicals that are making me happy or sad or controlling my sleep. And the people that just took a sugar pill, their blood work gets better. They're able to sleep. Their cholesterol numbers get better. Their mental health balances out, all because they thought what they were taking was going to give them that effect. It actually changed them on a physiological and a cellular level. Like, that's how crazy that belief is. So yes, you got to believe it, and then you got to speak it, because the people around you are going to feed off of your words too. And that goes back into the business. Like, what words are you speaking out into your team, into your managers, and they're managing other people? Like, do you have Eeyores on your team that are bringing down the rest of the team? And we've gone through that too, where we had people that were negative and their attitude really brought down the whole team. And it's like, we had to get rid of that. And when we did, the whole morale just lifted in an instant because of the words that were from someone else on the team.
So in the book of Proverbs, Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, made this observation. He said, death and life are in the power of the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and he goes on to say, and they that love it shall eat the fruit of it. And what he's saying there is that, look, if you love the tongue and love it, you're going to eat the fruit of what your tongue speaks. Death and life are in the power of it. And I realize, and I think you know too, there's a lot of wackadoos out there who take that and say, look, if you just tell God you want a Lamborghini, it's coming. All you got to do is say it, speak it, name it and claim it. That is not what we're talking about, folks. What we're talking about is the power of our reality being shaped by the words that we speak, which lead to the beliefs that are in our lives. So hopefully this has been helpful to you. Hopefully you understand what we're trying to get at. If you have questions about what we're talking about, Justin and I would love to engage with you. You can go to chiselandcompass.com. You can read more about the show notes and have links to get in touch with us. But we're also on Instagram. Both of us are very active on Instagram. I'm at the real Jason Duncan, and he
at Dr. Justin Moseley, Dr. Justin Moseley, Moseley.
Yeah, so reach out to us. And if you do DM us on there, just let us know you heard this on Chisel and Compass. And we thank you for watching this. If you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, or if you're just listening to it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you tune in again next time. We're going to have another concept that we're going to talk about the intersection of faith, business, and mindset. Justin, any last words before we sign off today?
Just death and life is in the power of the tongue. Be careful. Hold every thought captive and really look at how you are speaking, because you're either speaking life or death. I'd rather speak life.
That's right. Amen. Well, thanks for listening. I am the real Jason Duncan, and he is
Dr. Justin Moseley.
And we'll see you next time. And remember, Jesus is King. That's a wrap on Chisel and Compass for today. For show notes, resources, and more, hit up chiselandcompass.com and follow us on social media. You can find me at The Real Jason Duncan, and you can find Justin at Dr. Justin Moseley. Until next time, keep your chisel sharp, your compass true, and never stop building what matters. This is Chisel and Compass.